Hello and welcome everyone to a very special Up the Poshcast. I'm Harry and I'm joined by Ashley and Max tonight, and we are delighted to welcome to the show for the second time El Presidente, Chairman, third time. It's second time of this, but we did Spaces together before, Darragh. I think this is the second one, isn't it? That was it. But yeah. Chairman of Peterborough United and TalkSport regular, Darragh MacAnthony. How are you tonight?
I'm all right, fellas. I'm this whole climate thing in the world that's killing us. You know what I mean? I've got enough aircon units here that would sort out a big ballroom, get it nice and cool. So apologise for any noise in the background. It's very hot.
It's all good. Can hear you loud and clear. And we won't be adding to any of your, we're raising your blood pressure or temperature at all tonight. I assure you. Can't promise what the commenters on YouTube will do. But we shall see. Before we get into it, a few points to cover. If you want to ask questions to Darragh, you're able to do it through YouTube. It's the only stream commenting place that we'll be responding to. To be able to do that, subscribe to Up the Poshcast on YouTube. Helps us massively as a channel, and as I say, we'll give you potentially a direct chance to ask Darragh a question tonight, and we'll bring them up on screen as they happen. Secondly, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Prime Vehicle Sales. They're local, they love the Posh. They've got a top range of cars, vans, and commercial vehicles with finance options available to make things easy. So if you're looking for your next motor, they're well worth a look. Big thanks to them for supporting the podcast tonight. Check them out at primevehiclesales.co.uk. And thirdly, briefly, for those watching Up the Poshcast for the first time tonight, we have a new website where you can watch back all our episodes, buy merch, read articles that we've written, and many more things. And partner with us as well. We have more sponsors coming. And if you want to sponsor with us, you're able to get in contact through the website, uptheposhcast.com. Right, all the waffle is out the way. Star of the evening, Darragh MacAnthony.
Listen, most importantly, what are they paying you, these sponsors? I've never really looked for a sponsor for the podcast. What are they giving you? A few quid?
10,000 billion.
Is it somebody's dad? Is it somebody's dad or uncle?
It's my mum, and she absolutely paid me for the time and the space that we've given her. But maybe we'll discuss that one after we've pressed the button. I don't want to give away all of our secrets.
But yeah, you know what? First question. Let's make it not about football. Tell me something that you've enjoyed this summer, Darragh, away from the football.
Being on holiday with the family, even though it was very stressful. I always enjoyed it. It's my favourite thing in June. So, look, my second kid's about to go to college, so we're left with 1-2 years' time. They'll be off to college. So it'll be like, I say to my kids, as you get older, that holiday is going to be there every June. Come, don't come. You got your own boyfriends, girlfriends, doing your own shit, no problem. But that's going to be there as a family every June to go back to the same spot. And you don't realize how quick things go, guys. For those of you who have kids, haven't got kids yet, these things fly by. So every time I get that holiday with the kids, grown-ups now, that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? I really do, cherish those moments. So very important.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's been enough time reflecting on last season, finished 18th. How are you feeling about it? Have you since the end of the season, any kind of new reflections about it that have come to you? And also, and I might be stealing Max's question here, did you ever think we might actually get relegated?
No, to the second question. No, never felt that way at all. I know you guys were in free fall panic and everything else, but no, I didn't. The answer to the first question, there were 4 teams that were successful in League One last year. Can you name the 4? Anyone?
Birmingham. We do a ring around. You want to go, Ashley?
Yeah, Wrexham, Stockport, and Charlton, I guess you have to say.
Stockport?
I probably would have said at the other end. I probably would have said Burton, but that's just for staying up.
I would say there were 4 teams that had honours last year from League One, and they were Wrexham, Birmingham, Charlton, and Peterborough United. Because in 10 years' time, when the history books go back and go, who are the 4 teams in League One and on a question of sport that ended up with honours that season, I think we'd be one of those. Is that the correct answer?
It is.
So there you go. So look, our goal every year is to get promoted. It always has been. We're in League One. But it was a crappy season in the league. We all know that. It's done. We move on. We learn from it. It wasn't expected. Even though a lot of you guys every summer always expect it. Do you know what I mean? Going back way when. Not you guys personally, but some of the Twitterati. It was just one of them seasons. Nothing went right. But I'm proud. We stuck together. We stuck together as a staff. We stuck together as a club. Our fans stuck with us. If you look at our gates, you look at the success off the pitch. Nobody ran. Nobody kind of left us. I dare say 10, 15 years ago, that might have been the case. That's the power to the fans nowadays. It's not just about we're going for promotion every season. They actually want to come and watch the football team win, lose or draw. And the payback for the fans in doing that is a cup win and making history at Wembley and beating, the best team League One's ever seen in front of 70,000 fans, and which is probably a pretty big cup upset, according to the bookies. From that perspective, I'm one of those people, and I've had many failures in my life. You're not just, your life's not just all about successes and success. You do have failures, you have setbacks. I look back and I go, okay, look at the season. We had setback after setback, but ultimately I had a brilliant day with my family at Wembley. My kids again got to see us win a cup. That's 2 years in a row. I had one kid coming in from college I hadn't seen. The families together. And for me, feeling like that in the Royal Box at Wembley, I know many fans in Wembley Stadium themselves probably felt that way. And it was one of them things where I go, yeah, that's what owning, supporting a football club is all about, the highs and lows. And we certainly had lots of highs and lows last year. I'm not going to say we shit the bed, just lots of things happened that ultimately led to us having a really, really poor season by our standards. But, I look back and go, I think we played Burton around Christmas time. I was in the country. I think it was the night Kwame got injured, and I think we were a couple of wins from the playoffs at that time. It's not like we were 18th, 19th for August, September, October, November, December. Do you get what I mean? We were there. We always felt, truth be known, we always thought we were going to be a late runner. That was kind of the way it was going with the injuries and stuff. We thought we'd be a late runner. We'd do a bit of business in January. We'd make a run at it. And we didn't expect, obviously losing to Burton that night, losing Kwame Poku, who probably the best player in League One, if he'd stayed fit for the whole season. And that's not a blame or whatever else. I certainly didn't see us diving. I didn't see what was going to happen afterwards, just as one player. But it's done now, and you learn from it. And again, the greatest thing I can say is we stuck to our principles. We stuck together as a management team. I think 7 of the bottom 8 teams or 7 of the 9 bottom 8 teams all changed their manager. And I think we were one of the only teams that didn't do that. And there was a time I was in 4-4-2 as like the biggest hatchet chairman in football for the amount of sackings and whatever I did, call it youth, call it whatever you want. So, yeah, it's done.
Thinking of next season, you've just said that promotion / winning the league is always the aim. Is it fair to say that maybe for next season that probably isn't the aim? Looking at how much development the squad has to do and what's come in, would it be fair to say that if we finished anywhere from 10th to 14th, that would be a successful season?
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Any year you hear me say the words finishing 10th to 14th or better than last year by a few slots or whatever else, I will sell the club. I'm not built that way. And I'm certainly not, forget about what we bring in transfer sales. With the money I've spent over the last 3 windows and what we're putting together, no, that's not the expectation. That's not the aim. I'm sorry. And some of you go, that's crazy, and we're watching it. No, I would expect us to bounce back in a very positive way. We've made a lot of changes. We stylistically will change a little bit in a good way. We're doing things that we haven't done for probably ever. Double, triple sessions, to make our players like ultra fitter than ever before. No, I'm expecting really, really good things. I know people are sleeping on us. I know people are writing us off. That's okay. That's cool. That's fine. We can play that role of the underdog or whatever else. No props. But no, I would be actually massively disappointed, with that.
Okay, so then flip side then, you obviously you didn't sack Fergie last season. Fantastic. At what point in the next 12 months, let's say, if it's not going right for Posh and we're not competing again because last season was a one-off, at what point do you sort of say then, okay, it's not worked this season, Darren, we need to change?
Are you
ultimately.
the
Yeah, make a
arbiter of
change.
doom? Are you the arbiter of doom? Just every
No,
question so
I
far.
just
I'm just like, you've opened up your questioning with, oh well, let's talk about 18. Let's talk about 10 to 14 being a success. And by the way, if we don't start, we don't do well. What's going to go on with Fergie? You used a lot of ifs. If my auntie had bollocks, she'd be my uncle. I don't live in ifs, and ifs don't pay the bills. It's like people saying, I hope. And I used to say to my sales guys, they say, I hope I do a sale. I'll be like, hope ain't going to pay a mortgage. So, hope ain't really around when you need it the most. So,
look, if you
do,
think
you
I'm
don't.
negative, you're lucky that John's not here because John's got us ranked bottom at the moment.
Yeah, I get it, and John always will be like that, and he's obviously it's built into him. You know what I mean? To be a little bit on that side of things, and then all of a sudden things are going well, and John's the biggest fan, and he loves this, he loves that, and blah blah blah. But I get it. Look, every fan's different. Every fan is what they are. It's John's prerogative to think like that and to question everything and go, that's crap, and why didn't we do this in social media? And the marketing team are living by Darragh and and trying out all of these crazy things. And for a journalist, that's amazing, because usually they come to you for a source on a story, before they start making opinions like that. I get where you're coming from. I guess we have to regain the trust of everyone because of that one bad season last year. That's just the way people are going to think. That's just the way people are programmed, and they look at the players and they look at whatever and they question everything. That's the beauty about the game. It's opinions. I always say opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. My opinion is we're better than last year. We're stronger for last year. We're going to surprise people. A lot of people will sleep on us. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't want to shout about, winning the league, 100 points, 100 goals, all of that. But the way I'm built is I want to see my team score loads of goals. I want the Golden Boot winner. I want 3 players in the EFL Team of the Year. I want to win everything we compete in. It's the way I am, and I'm built that way. I am positive-minded when it comes to lots of things in my life, definitely my football club. And yeah, I can get down like the rest of you when we're not doing well or whatever else. But to question the greatest manager that's ever managed our football club, or to put that out in the ether there about I don't think like that. We're a team, we're very much together. Camp was really good. We're very much with the players. I spent a great hour with the leadership group on the final night when we negotiated the bonuses. That leadership group was Rio, our new skipper, Archie, CJ, and Ibby. And, obviously I went toe to toe with them as they tried to get more money out of me and do this and do that. And what I loved about them was they introduced new things I'd never put in the bonus sheet before, which gave me an insight into their mind. Usually we have stuff like win the league, promotion, cup win. I give them, I think there's £1 million if they win the EFL trophy and they win promotion. If they win the EFL trophy, I think they get 300 grand amongst them all. And, I've lost money on the EFL trophy the last 2 years, even though we've had those windfalls from Wembley, we've lost money. And that's fine because you want to win cups. But they asked me to introduce things because they found out Birmingham had done things like a bonus for going 15 games unbeaten, a bonus for winning 6-7 league games in a row, a bonus for whatever. I like that way of thinking. I like the fact my leadership group are thinking like that and in line. And when you speak to the leadership group, they love the atmosphere and vibe. And you hear that crap every summer. But when you hear why they didn't love it last summer as opposed to why they do love it this summer, you understand why. You had a group of 20-odd people last year where 7 of them were planning their exit. 7 of them were obsessed about other clubs but Peterborough. 7 of them were dreaming of their future and dreaming of the next big move. And, they weren't thinking about promotion and winning football games. So there was a lot of distraction. And I think when you see the group this time in pre-season with the new players, the new additions, the new personalities, some of the younger players from year 1 now into year 2, collectively, they all want to be at our football club and they're not thinking about moves to Real Madrid and transfers here and there. They know what the job is and what it entails. And speaking to the more experienced players, and I laugh saying that, but Sam's 28, CJ's 23 or 20, whatever else, and even Archie, it's refreshing. And I'm with the staff, I'm with the players, and, good times, bad times, whatever else, you've got to back your guys. And, I always say, if I'm going into an alleyway, having a row, there's certain people you'll pick to go into that alleyway against 10 individuals you might be competing against in that alleyway. And there's certain people you wouldn't have in that alleyway. And let's just say there was quite a few people last year who I probably wouldn't have at that stage had in the alleyway with me. And now I would have no problem picking anyone from our squad to be there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick you up on what you said about the leadership core there, Darragh. It was interesting to hear Rio's name mentioned. Now he feels a little bit of an unknown entity to us. When we signed him, he was obviously one of, if not the best, fullback in League Two at the time. And he came in, and I personally had high hopes for him, and obviously the injury was brutal, and it seems to have taken him quite a while to get back on track. Him being a part of that leadership core, do you think that speaks volumes about the head he's got on his shoulders and how important he can be this season and beyond?
Oh yeah, I mean he would have been better off just doing his ACL last summer. He'd have been back months ago. Like the severity of the injury and the operations and everything else. I'm a believer in Rio, and I think he believes in himself and the work he's put in to come back. There's nobody I'm rooting for more to get back on the grass and show everyone what he can do. And we feel we've fixed everything now. And he's in that stage now where he's not training with the lads yet, but he will, I think, in the middle of August he is. And then he'll play 21 games, and then he'll be back September. And as a character, if you spend 20 minutes with him, he's a lovely guy. He's 24. He's not, you talk to these guys and you're like, they're young. He's having his first child, soon, which is even great news when you're going through all of that, to have that to look forward to. His partners moved in with him, they're settled, where they are in Peterborough. He is, and he speaks very well. And I have to say, all the leadership group, even Ibby, and Ibby stepping up this year from last year, I mean, part of that group the manager put together, it was really, really enjoyable. And like I said, Barry was sat there, and I just basically went 12 rounds with them on. They wanted this, I wanted that. I used my superstition in there about I didn't like last year's bonuses. Look how we finished up, so we're going backwards here. So that was the start of it. And then obviously they came back with, we want this, and this, and it was really good. It was really positive. So no, we've got some fine young men, at our football club, and I know they'll break limbs, you know what I mean, for us to try and achieve what we want to achieve. So look, Max, Rio's a great guy, and I'll say a prayer from every day that he comes back and he stays back. And previous players have had those kind of injuries, have gone on great careers, and there's no reason he can't either. He was a high value asset we went and acquired last year, invested a lot of money in. And again, you talk about how crap last season was. We forget about some of the key pieces that were missing for large parts. So again, touch wood, that's behind us. So I'm looking forward to seeing Rio back out there competing with Harley for that spot. Yeah,
just following on from that as well, to have Hughes announced as the captain and Johnston as the vice, does this leadership group, how does this compare to previous seasons, and most notably last season, in terms of having that spine of leaders throughout the pitch?
Yeah, 2 or 3 of the leadership group last year were leaving the club. So it compares, the majority of them, bar Archie, are basically here long term and want to be here. And I'm not slighting Archie in any way. I'm still talking with him, and he's now, his girlfriend's moved to Peterborough. She's got a job in Peterborough. She's just started. So I see that as a positive. So it's very different leadership group wise. You have to understand, 2 years ago, the leadership group I was sat with we just got rid of all the experienced players that choked in the final and before, the Sheffield Wednesday thing, and we went young. So that leadership group I was sat in front of was Harrison Burrows, Josh Knight, I forget who else, I think Joel Randall was in it. There's a couple of others. So it was kind of like, Hector, they were kind of like the next guys up, and that was 2 years ago, and we went on to have a really good season. And it was similar to that. None of those guys were thinking about, Harrison wasn't thinking, I'm going to win Player of the Year in League One and go to Sheffield United. He just wanted to get in and play for his hometown club. So that's kind of where we are. So I'm very fond of the leadership group. I think Darren's picked a really good leadership group, and I think, for him and the coaches to have them, you've got a little bit of everything in there. You've got, obviously players representing new signings that have just arrived. You've got players who've been here a couple of years. You've got players from last year in there. You got kind of like oldish, middle-ish, young, not oldish, but you get what I'm saying.
A very little anecdote from me. I remember last season, Lincoln game away, which obviously was horrendous, lost 5-1. But first time we saw that season, centre-back actually barking out orders. That was Sam Hughes, actually been in the door for a couple of weeks. And it was good to see him actually communicating at a high level so loudly and clearly that the fans could see it as well. And while that game didn't work out, it was great to see it turn around. And you can see it in his interviews as well. He's definitely got the character that you need for a leader.
Yeah, he's a leader. I mean, he was with Josh Knight at Leicester. He was telling me that they scored 20 goals. Really? Yeah, they scored 20 goals between them in the 21s. And he said, I shouldn't have told you that. And I'm like, yeah, where are the goals from you? From like set pieces. So him and Josh are built from the same,
Can I tell you a stat, Darragh, that we one of the fans told us beforehand? He's got the second. Sam Hughes got the second most League One goals in this squad currently.
That doesn't shock me, but Alan Swan and his little apprentice Ben obsess over, players leaving and goals and whatever else leaving the team. I mean, Christ, I could go back 5 years ago and tell you that, every year we lose goals from the team or whatever else. It's like nothing we haven't done over 20 years. I'm not obsessing over,
Last season was the anomaly for that. Last season was the anomaly for that. Every other season has it.
We were top 7 in goal scoring last season, but it was still crap. I think we scored 40s, whatever goals it was, or 50 goals. It wasn't anything you'd be screaming from the rooftops about, So, we know the improvements we have to make. But am I confident that, Declan, Keane, even Ibby, obviously our new boy Lisby, and can we score goals? Will our midfielders score goals? I'm more worried. Will our midfielders step up and score? Forget about the attackers, the wingers, whatever. Are our central midfielders going to stand up and score? Is Archie going to give us 3 or 4 goals? He's going to give us 4 or 5 assists. I know Donny will. Is it Brandon? I'm not going to talk too much about Brandon, but Brandon,
Can we talk on him, please? Because
no,
I discussed with Phil.
I'm not going to talk about him because you're all going to accuse me.
You want positivity. I will give you the positivity on how good I think that this man is going to be, and it's fantastic that we've signed him on a 4+1 5-year deal. Right? I do not see, maybe slightly negative, how we're going to keep him for that long because of the things that I've seen in the training sessions, the things that I've seen in the 2 friendlies. He sees things that other players don't, and I think that he's significantly further ahead of everybody else. So I think that we should talk him, and I think that you should hype him up a little bit.
No hype. No hype.
That's good then, because that's you showing that you know how good he is, because you don't want to say it.
No, me and the manager speak every day about him. And we both have to just go, let's just calm down because he's 20 and, he's going to have good and bad spells. And, we know what we have to do with him. We know what we have to improve. We knew what we lacked last year in mobility, box to box. We had a real mobility problem in there. And that's not a slight on the players who've left. But for whatever reason, they weren't what they were before. And there was a real mobility issue. And we know what we want from our central midfielders. You almost want a bit of Jack Taylor and Hector. You want the box-to-box. You want the power and size and the goals. It's almost like a hybrid of them two. I'm not going to hype him up because it would be unfair on him. All I'll say is this about him. I love him and his family. I think they're a great footballing family. He's got a brother in Leicester's academy, by the way. So whatever his dad's doing over there, he's creating some good footballers. He could have gone to a bigger club than us. It's probably the most comfortable I've felt spending 500 grand of my money on a player. Put it that way. And I think...
Is that exclusive?
It's probably the most I've spent undisclosed. And I think I'm very optimistic cautiously, and I don't want to put too much pressure on his young shoulders. And, hopefully he'll break into the team. He's got to play his way in. But I will say this, I am as excited about him, about Donny, as I am him. If anyone saw Donny this summer and the muscle he's come back with, the size of him when he takes his shirt off, don't sleep on him. I know John has this being his bonnet about Donny, and I'll argue, if you know the bids we turned down for the championship, and I can show John to blow his mind and show what a judge of talent he is, the fact that these championship clubs bid for Donny, let me tell you, don't sleep on that kid, because that kid is the most dedicated youngster we have from a gym perspective, a work perspective. I was getting videos from his agent of him running up, I don't know if it was Mount Everest, with weight vests on. All through a period when loads of my players were in beach holidays and abroad, this kid was just basically busting ass to make sure his upper body.
Yeah, he looks a lot bigger. He looks a lot bigger.
you guys did a podcast on the Leicester game, and I caught a glimpse of it, and I couldn't believe you experts, none of you mentioned or analysed the three, not one, not two, the three passes he made that were pretty much defence-splitting passes at times from him into our forwards. We should have got on and scored goals. I mean, no one else in midfield did that. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you now, don't sleep on him.
Well, I certainly won't. I mentioned every other part of his performance that day, but anyway.
But the important part.
Look, he can pass. I agree. He can do the line-splitting passes, absolutely. And where John is on the Donne scale, I'm at the other end. And you can go back to my tweets from his first interview with the club when he was going into the under-21s, saying this kid seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. This segues us nicely. So you've said that we've got high ambitions for the season, as always. Talked about Keller, Donne. Just general thoughts about what you've seen so far for pre-season, what you want to see more of out of the guys we've got. We'll get on to new signings later.
I'll tell you what I love.
What are you thinking so far?
I think Kevin Russell's going to be one of the secret signings of the season in an explosive way. We watched set-piece drills. Now, as you know, we were the worst team in the EFL last year up until March on set-pieces goals conceded. I mean, we were the worst in 92 clubs. 72 in the league, 20 in the Premier League. We were the worst for goals conceded on corners, free kicks into our box. You know, the fact nobody's pulled up that statistic, we were the worst. You go to pressing, we were the worst team in the EFL for pressing. Take those two things alone. Scarfy came up with a stat. If we conceded 8 less set-piece goals and scored 4 more, we'd have finished in the top 7. That's how mad the difference on set plays and set pieces are. Look at Max's face. He gets a stiffy over there just on that one statistic. So let me explain to you right now. I'm watching at St. George's, all right, Rooster has got our defenders with tennis balls in their hands, right? And I'm watching this drill, and it's I shouldn't even probably say this, giving away one of his tricks. Bear in mind, he's worked under Tony Pulis at Stoke, all right, on set pieces in and out both boxes. And I'm watching. The whole idea is you as a defender are not allowed to grab because you've got a tennis ball in your hand. Suddenly, you're stood in the box, and you have to find a way, because usually what they'll do is they'll grab them, whatever, and then they get low, and then somebody runs around, whatever. You've got to find a way to stay. We watched 21 set-piece deliveries go in. And let me tell you right now, there were Harley Mills deliveries and Cricky deliveries, and there were unbelievable deliveries. And it sounds like, oh my God, our attackers didn't do very well scoring. We scored 1 goal in 22 of them. That's how good our defenders were in the set pieces. The other side of that is it's improving the attacking set piece play because they're all our players. And if you looked at the other night, I think 4 of the goals came from set plays. Now, I get it, the level of opposition and whatever else. But if you looked at the delivery and the intent to attack, you know, if we can clean that up by 60% either way, we're a different team. Think about that last year. Think about the stat I just told you about us being the worst. So think about, you know, the fact when Sam came in, he finally settled down and we went on that little run of unbeaten games. I think we conceded only 2 more set pieces in the last 10 or 12 games. So we were the worst in the first 33, 34 games. So there are all those things that if Rooster brings what we think he can bring and improve the forwards, when you look at our finishing last year and whatever else, we feel very optimistic because I know a lot of you will probably have written off, say, Ibby and written off Keane and maybe written off a few. Trust me, those guys will be different mustard in the second season. I can see it in Keane already. You know, I'm speaking to Keane. The great thing about St. George's is, and I didn't go to every session. Barry would go to every session. He'd be down there in his G-robe, you know, walking around, stripped off. I was back in the hotel having meetings with the CEO come down, with Alex come down. I was doing deals. I was concluding the Rangers deal. You know, all those things were going on. So I'd pop down. I'd always say to the management staff, we've got the exciting stuff or the shit stuff. Because I don't want to go down and watch the tippy-tappy drills. I want to see the goals. I want to see all the stuff. So I'd go in the afternoon and see the exciting stuff. And I said to Keane, if Keane got out of his own head, he wouldn't be with us in League One. I think what happens to him, he's so young and he's so desperate that he could dribble past anyone. If you watched him against Leicester, he gets in positions and he gets in the box and then his head. But then again, we forget how young he is. Like we forget about, you know, good wingers and whatever else. If he wasn't like that, he wouldn't be with Peterborough United. So it's on us now to develop Keane to the point where, right, you're in the box, you beat 4
He's
players.
aware of it, right? He said so to the club, didn't he?
He knows. He's a great young guy and he's a great character. And I do think he's a guy, you know, again, who could get 10, 15 assists with his eyes shut because he's got pace, he's got power, You know, he's your modern day winger that will also track back. You know, if you look at Kwame was magnificent. But ask the right backs what was Kwame like coming back to help out. It's not a slight on Kwame. You've all watched him. You know, then you look at Keane and you look at Declan. And if you looked at Declan in Switzerland, one of the things that stood out the most wasn't the flair, wasn't just the goals and stuff. It was the hard work going the other way. Because as you know, we play out from the back, which means our full backs at times are playing into the right and left winger with their back to goal. And they have to be proficient to be able to technically control it, keep it, move it, and keep moving the ball. Not the ball bouncing off and suddenly we're getting pressed and we're in trouble. So, you know, there are all those little variables you look at. And so much stuff, the drills we're doing on pressing. It was very, very good to watch. And defensively, some of the stuff was great as well. So, yeah, I'm always quietly optimistic watching us do that stuff.
I've got something for you because there's another one that I read in the run up to this show. Top successful dribble rate in League One last year. No surprise with Kwame Poku. Hayes was second in the whole of League One successful dribble rate. Unbelievable. It's almost like not unbelievable.
Hang on. It's almost like we recruit players that are very similar to the ones we sell for like many millions. Do you know what I mean? It's
I know.
That's a bit of a shocker. I mean, never really.
We're all a big fan of Keane, and you're absolutely right. If he can do what he does, but just look up 2 or 3 more times, he'll open up the pitch to himself completely.
He will. Big season for him and Cricky and Ibby. You know, I really think those 3 players alone, if they're 30% better than last year, we're in business. And I think they'll be more than 30% better. You know, Colin Clark had a really rough season on and off the pitch. You know, God bless him. The move, everything else, family stuff, everything. And, you know, somebody put up a post where he puts up on Instagram with a big picture of alcohol and my 2 favorite things. And I've rang Barry from Dubai going, Paz, you need to ring him. He's not on the boozes. He's meant to come back like, you know, in super shape and lose weight and everything else. And I'm in a bit of a panic. Fuck, he's meant to be on a prep. But to be fair, the players who went away with our sports science, they have this thing with them which reports their data. And straight away we knew he was, 11 kilos lighter than when we signed him a year ago. I mean, that for a player like him allows him to suddenly press, where last year he couldn't press. And yes, we know all the good things he can do with the ball, but to be in our team, he's going to need to have to press like shit and get the ball back. And if you watch the last 2 games, he's like... If
anything, we've said this before, that I think he can press too enthusiastically, running after player, and then the ball gets passed, so he runs after them. You can get away with that if you're Ricky, but most have to think about the passing lanes and blocking the most easy option to the centre back or the goalkeeper.
But the problem last year was Ricky.
Go on.
Ricky last year was like a greyhound pressing everybody, but then you might have a Malik behind him who's basically not picking up in the press. So, you know, Ricky's just gone and done that, and it's a waste of time. So if we don't perfect the press, we don't press in packs at the right times, because you can't just press all game long. You watch a PSG, you watch a team like that, there's a precursor to the press. Usually, I think with PSG, it was Dembele, we watched him the other night against Real Madrid. So, and then you forget about watching him, watch the players around him who read the spots as he's pressing. So he's closing the goalie this way, and then you see the right winger close down their left back who's taking the ball. So, but if the right winger doesn't do it, it's a waste of a run. So all those little things and intricacies and everything else have to be figured out. Are we going to perfect it? It'll take time. It'll probably look shit a few times, do you know what I mean? But we get it right with the pace we have in our team, we'll score goals from it.
Darragh, I just wanted to loop back round. You mentioned recruitment there, and something that's really made me optimistic about the coming season is that there seems to be a linear sort of vision as to where we want to go. With the recruitment in terms of the contract length, especially, you've mentioned multiple times how frustrating it is when players run down their contracts. Was this sort of a reaction to that? And do you think there's more of a maybe a vision of where we want to go with players, signing them on for however extensive lengths of time?
Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Max. I like the word linear, by the way. Very good. You know, you look back and you see, here's the problem for us. Someone complained, Barry and Darragh haven't got anyone to sign a new contract in a long time. Well, the problem you've got is, you know, we have a wage structure, and we can't break the wage structure because we do have rules to live by, and we can only spend 60% of what we bring in on football-related expenditure. So here's the problem. We'll have a player come in, Kwame Poku would be a great example. We signed him on a 4-year deal. My mistake there was I didn't get the option year. And we didn't think two things. Kwame would be with us 4 years. Because usually players like that aren't with us that long. Second to that, by the time he's with us after year 3, he's such a highly coveted asset that he knows, even if we offered him our highest paid amount per week, it's laughable compared to what he's going to get elsewhere. So it's like a fool's folly. We're not going to be able to get those players to sign a new contract. It's very, very rare. So what we said was, okay, the ones we pay big money for, it's going to be 4+1. The ones we're on the bubble with, where we've spent money, but it's not a substantial amount of money, we'll do a 3+1, or maybe even a 3+2. So that gives us a bit of insurance that if they turn out to be a shitter, or turn out, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but that player doesn't come off, and not all transfers do, you know that you're not stuck with that player for 4 or 5 years. So it works both ways. And bear in mind, the option amounts are extremely high amounts of money. So the player's agent might argue, well, I'm not signing a deal with an option year. Well, if the option year is 3 times his weekly salary, there's no worry, because if we pull it, the player's going to be very well compensated. And if we pull it, it means they're highly coveted. So we're okay taking that risk on that one player. So that's kind of where we went with that. So over the last 3 windows, the majority of players, one smart arse did realize that, I think it was one of the players, Oscar or somebody, only signed a shorter contract, on it. That was us being a bit from Sweden. I was a little bit gun shy on a long-term contract because we were kind of fishing in new waters. Hence why it wasn't a long-term contract. But most of the players you're going to see coming in are tied down for long periods of time. And when the agents say to us, well, we're not signing that, I'm moving on. I wish I'd done it with Hector 3 years ago. When his agent said, I'm not signing a 4-year, 5-year, knowing we spent 400 grand, I broke my own principle. I should have at the time said, no, sorry, we're taking a 19, 20-year-old who, was in League 2 at the time. Like, you're going to take the option year, we're moving on, because no one else is going to pay 400 grand to get him out of there. That was my mistake. So I guess in life, you keep learning from mistakes you make, right?
Yeah. You talk about mistakes, and if I think back to the end of the January transfer window and the comments on somebody like Manny not going to Norwich and not taking that opportunity, what do you think the change was for him that meant that all of a sudden moving all the way up to Scotland and going to Rangers was such a great deal, and how good of a deal was it for Posh?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't speak for Manny. He turned down Norwich. I thought it was a mistake at the time. What do I know? He's ended up at a club that could be in the Champions League this season. Now, I still think if he goes to Norwich, he's one step from the Premier League. But he's going to Rangers. Rangers is one of the biggest clubs in Britain. I'm not a Rangers fan, but at the end of the day, it's a massive football club. And let me tell you, the amount of agents the following day after we did that deal that were messaging me about centre-halves, about this player, about that player. That's why I always like to laugh about these things. The deal was a phenomenal deal. We paid 0 for Manny. 0. That was the deal. 0 sell on, 0. Now, there is they retain 5%, which is a FIFA thing, which then gets distributed to clubs that Manny might have played for. So, we knew Rangers were in for him. Russell had tipped off our manager that he was on their radar. Barry had been working on that for 5 weeks. But here's the thing. There was an Italian club that had just got promoted from Serie B or whatever it's called, who have a history of doing what we do on a bigger level in Italy, that were also at the table bidding in the many millions, an Italian club. Now, here's what will blow your mind. A lot of recruitment now is just data-driven. If you go on the data sites and have a look at centre-halves under the age of 24, who have a 68+% aerial win percentage, defensive record, man, he's way up there. He's way up there. You've no idea. Throw into the fact people would watch the Everton game in the Cup, the Birmingham game at Wembley, those games. You look at Manny in those games. I think Manny will kill it in Scotland. I think Rangers have absolutely got a bargain, and I think we'll make millions more. Because I think Rangers could sell him, and I'm not comparing him to Van Dijk. I'm just saying I think Rangers could sell him in 2 years' time, because Rangers aren't going to get attacked a lot in their league. All right, borrowing they play Celtic and a couple of other the bigger clubs. He's gonna look tremendous, and I think he has the potential with concentration and a good coach and who focuses on him, and he has to know the money they've spent. They can turn him into a prime centre half who at 26 could end up in the Premier League. And we're all going to look back and go, geez, this guy was third choice centre back at Peterborough. Now he's playing in the Premier League, and that'll be music to my ears, because again, we'll make more money. So we make money every time we get in the Champions League. We got paid a very, very good price. We felt, of course, we asked for more. But we ended up with more money than Norwich were paying us. So it's funny how things work out. It's the time me and Barry in January ago, like, we're never going to get a bid like this again. Like, what on earth are you doing turning down Norwich? So more fool us.
You mentioned Manny, Hector. Don't dwell too much on the players who aren't here anymore. But obviously, Pokey went with the blessing, given the deal that he got for us. Really, we're going to QPR rather than going elsewhere.
He did in the end, yeah.
Yeah, just about. You didn't seem so hot on where Ricky went. You mentioned it at the time. Any sentiment change on that since your tweet on the day of him leaving, or are you still feeling the same about it?
No comment on him whatsoever.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, with a player that you bring up through your academy from 9 years old?
Difficult. No comment on him whatsoever. It's like it never happened.
Can I open on a more broad topic then, just to sort of understand where you are and where the football club is at the moment? It seems like you've made a massive sort of push on the family aspect of the football club, and that we are one. How important is that when you are looking at new players coming in and how they, because we know that Fergie in the past has turned players down because they haven't had the right attitude, right?
Yep.
How important now is it that when we look for players that we go, right, they're going to be part of our family? Obviously, I don't want to name names, but when you watch back the interview that you did with Phil for Posh Plus, there was 2 or 3 mentions of, it feels like they've left the family type thing. So
yeah,
why is that so important now?
Yeah, I look, family fights for each other. Family looks after each other. Family does everything they can for each other. And even though family might fight at times, and we all fight with our brothers and sisters, I've got siblings, and I look after them, I always will. And I teach my 3 kids to look out for each other. And even players who've left me from the past, your McLeans, your Boyds, your Tomlins, the bigger names, they're still part of our family. And they call upon me when they need me, and we've called upon them when we've needed them. And we've always been there with them. And I wish all players were like that, but unfortunately it doesn't work out that way. And, Harrison Burrows and his family a year ago were in a position where he was 4 days waiting to sign a document or have a document submitted for him to join Sheffield United. And it was the dream move. And it all fell apart. And I put that back together. I'm not trying to take credit. You can ask anybody, including them, not Barry, no one else. I spent an hour and a half in this office here onto Saudi Arabia putting that deal back together. Well, that boy and his family were in bits, like done. He'd spent all summer waiting to go there, and it was done. All right? I put it back together. And I still have the emails where we got an email saying we're sending them back, the deal's dead. So I'm telling you now, H would say to you, to anyone else, whatever else, Peterborough's where he started, and he would do anything for us in the future. He's going to play in the Premier League. And Sheffield United are going to make a lot of money. And we're going to make a lot more money. But he knows we're family. And that's what you do for family. And I always look at it this way, and it goes both ways. People go, football's a short career, and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, you're damn right. But if you got to go back and remember, you don't know the things I've done for players since the age of 11, 12, 13, the part even I've played, through the academy, pushing players on managers, saying to managers, take them to St. George's Park, blah, 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 blah. All those little things over the years. And, when managers have wanted to bomb them out, release them, not give them new contracts. I've changed the course of their lives with their families, their parents, everything. So I do expect a little bit at times a return on that, loyalty-wise, and do the right thing and whatever. Specifically when I also know you're not going to take a cut in money, you're going to make more money, and the club will do well and whatever else. So that's how I feel about that. And that's why I don't really want to talk about the Ricky thing. I'm not interested in him, his agent, his family. Good luck. At the end of the day, all I can go by is that I'm a man of my word. And, other people in the game, the industry, unfortunately, aren't at times, So I'm big on, and I say this to the current group, I'll fight to the end for them if they fight to the end for us. And even the ones, I often see from people go, oh, player was released and the club didn't handle this right. You don't know behind the scenes. Like Jack Sparks, I'd have made more money of him going to Chesterfield. Do you know why I did the deal? I was in the airport flying with my family to Dubai, and I paid him, I helped him, the decision to go to Bristol Rovers because him and his agent rang up and said his family are closer to Bristol, and it was a family move, and I stepped in, and I've got no friendship with Jack. I haven't spent any time with him. I did the right thing. 4 years ago, Ethan Hamilton we sold him to Accrington Stanley, and there was another club that bid 75 grand for him, and Accrington Stanley didn't want to pay a pound note, and it was on deadline day, and Ethan Hamilton rang Barry to say, can you ring the chairman, please? I don't want to go to this and do the deal for me, my family. And I had a choice. I could keep Ethan Hamilton knowing he played 21s football for 5 months and his family being, he didn't really move to the area, or I could basically say, you know what, I'm going to give him a chance. We've got our sell on, and if he comes off, great, but he's got to move on. I did right by the player. I did right by Jack Sparks. Not that that's reciprocated by some clubs when you try and do business with them, but I can only speak for me, and that's the way I am. And I got that feeling this summer when I did business with Stockport and I got into the owner and dealt with him. It felt reciprocated. It felt mutual respect. We did business in Sam. They did business in Malik. And it was kind of like quid pro quo. I'm going to do this. Down the line, I'm going to owe you a favor. And that's the way it should be in football, kind of thing. And it sometimes gets forgotten by players and clubs. That's the business.
I just want to pick you up on Malik again there, Darragh.
Sure.
I believe you've mentioned that Lisby is going to be Malik's sort of replacement, or we're going to sort of build him into the team, and he's going to be that replacement for Malik. Sort of like two questions in one. Do you think we might miss Malik's talent this season? And in terms of Lisby, do you think he's going to be able to kick on this year? Is he more one for the future? And how important do you think he can be for the squad overall?
I think Lisby will surprise people. I've never seen someone so hungry to score goals. If you look at even the goals he scores in pre-season, the chances he misses, watch where he is. The guy's a magnet for goals. Is he as talented one-on-one? When Malik could get going, he looked unbelievable. He could beat 7 players, 8 players, and whatever else. But at League One level, that doesn't happen every game. What are the fundamentals we want in players? And I like Malik, and he was a good character and whatever else. And he wasn't a problem in our dressing room. He just wanted to leave. He wanted to go. And I get that. We've been with us 2 years. He came from Chelsea's academy. We took a punt on him. Chelsea wanted 3 million quid for him. We did a deal pretty much with a massive sell-on with them because we weren't going to pay 3 million quid for a teenager out in the Premier League. I don't love signing Premier League youngsters usually. And he did well for us, and it was the right time. And he's gone to Stockport. Good luck to him in his move. I think Lisby will be, and I don't want to put pressure on him because we've got Ibby out there. I think Lisby will be in and out. I think you're going to see a lot of good things. I think you're going to see some bad things. I think you're going to see him evolve. I think it's going to take time. But the one thing I'll say about the kid, great family, great background, great support. His dad's an ex-player, so he knows the game. He again, like Adonai, is so focused on being a success. And every club he's gone to down the pyramid, he's been a success. And he will be with us as well.
Lisby's in, at Frith, a few others. I was delighted with Hughes personally, and of course Keller. How many more pieces, ballpark, are you looking at?
Manager wants 2, I want 3. So I would say everyone knows centre half. I'd probably like another central midfielder. Manager's a bit, okay, fine, and he's very.
So he's happy with what he's got. Midfield wise,
yeah. I mean, if one came in, one would maybe go. So I just want us to be the best we can be, and I think we got some good strength and depth in there. And the manager said to me, "Well, Joe Andrews broken through," and I knew that because I brought Joe in, and it was like 20 grand well spent. We see Joe's physicality wise and whatever. He's from Southampton's academy. We'd watched him there, and when he went to Chipping and my guys, so we knew he was going to be something. Yeah, we like him a lot. Now, whether it's his breakout season this year or he plays a part in the EFL trophies then next year, he is definitely one to get excited about. Don't sleep on Eddie Fox. I sat down with the academy at the end of the season and I gave the sports scientists of our academy a mission. I gave him 5 of our young talents and said, I want you for the next 8 weeks to put fucking muscle on them so when the manager takes them to St. George's Park, he notices them. Because lots of these 16, 17, 18-year-olds are built like probably Max. Do you know what I mean? Very thin and whatever else, don't have the muscle. And, and you look at it and go, well, you want them to be units. If you look at Donny, you look at the modern-day footballer, they're ripped. They're full of muscle. They can carry the physicality. One of the players on there, obviously, Bolu was one of them. A couple of other younger players, Luca, who we're very excited about. One of them was obviously Eddie Fox. We signed Eddie early on a very long-term contract because we knew we hadn't produced a box-to-box goal-scoring midfielder for a long time. Eddie's come back and he's ripped. I mean, he's ripped. And in the end, he didn't go to St. George's. He was meant to, but we needed a left back. And I think he, gutted the poor kid. But to be fair to him, they played Leicester's under 18s on Monday. We beat them 3-1. Eddie Fox scored 2 of those goals, box to box. Bolu created, I think, all 3 goals. We've got some, again, for the future, some good depth there. So if you're asking me what do we need, we all know we need another centre-half to complete the quartet. We probably need maybe a central midfielder. And then being greedy, maybe another striker to go with the 2 we have. So that would be kind of ideal for me. Now, the beauty is we're not in a hurry, and we're going to do it methodically.
That was giving me my next question was kind of,
sure.
Are any close, and even if they're not, do you care at this stage? Because there's a fairly decent core there. I guess the only thing I think, though, of the 3, you probably want centre-back first, purely because of managing Wallin's minutes building up.
Correct.
You don't want him doing too much.
Correct. Sam's obviously had his operation and he's back now training. Plays next Tuesday. Oscar was going the other day. I said that to the gaffer. Fuck me. That's the 2 centre halves there, and but he's very chilled about it. Luke has impressed everybody. If you saw him against Leicester and the way he handles himself on the ball, he's another centre back who's just fearless on the ball. Has no issues whatsoever.
He was good positionally as well. I thought he worked well with Bass in the first half in terms of their backline build up. Which was good to see, because it's easy to get that wrong early on.
No, he's a very intelligent footballer. I think he played right back too many times in the 21s last year because we had some centre halves in the first team in there. He's a centre back. He's not the biggest, but he has got a spring on him. He scores goals from set pieces. But what we like about him is if you watch some of the passes he played inside, a lot of centre halves his age wouldn't dare try the pass, and he had no problem doing that. I like to see a bit of arrogance from my youngsters. I want to see the old je ne sais quoi from players, because they're telling me basically, hey, we can do this with the first team. They're going to be players. So we like everything about Luca. He's another one we've tied down long term. But I like you would like another centre half. My management team are like, and I agree with them. 2 things. 1, we're not going to overpay. And 2, they've got to be the right ones. So that's where we are on that. But we're certainly not going to lose sleep. I know everyone was like, when I sold Manny, where's all the players? Why aren't we signing this player? And Manny, whatever else. Well, dumbasses. That's why I went and shopped in June, and spent a lot of money in June that we didn't have, knowing what was coming. Because I tell you right now, if I'd done all those deals we did in the space of a week, and you notice they were all stacked in a week, the ones going out. If I'd done those deals and hadn't signed anybody, we probably wouldn't have got maybe 3 of the 5. So that's why you kind of try and do what you do early on, So, but there's more to come, definitely.
Darragh, I just wanted to talk about George Nevitt for just a moment. He's obviously extremely talented, and that I think everybody can see. I think maybe one of his weaknesses is potentially his physicality. I think he struggled with that last year, perhaps. I was just wondering what are our plan? Is there a plan for him this season? If we bring another one, could we look to loan him out? Is he going to stay here and this season and be involved in that core of defensive players? What's the plan for him this season?
So George has come back and he's put on 8 pounds of muscle. So, again, he's 19. We forget how old he is. We spent a lot of money on George. He's on a 5-year deal, by the way. He was one of the first ones we did with a 4+1. And we spent a lot of money on him. And yes, he didn't have his best season last year settling in, and he got injured and he had issues and whatever. And you would say he's not the quickest centre half. So now he has to learn the game. You say physicality, I would say no. If you look at, and I've said this previously, I have all the data, the top 20 centre backs last year in League One for defensive challenges, and that's not aerial, this is defensive challenges, which are nicking the ball, stopping people, whatever else. He was 8th in League One. That would blow your mind. I could show you that day he's 8th. He already proficiently is well above average aerially. He passes the ball beautifully, as we know. Now he has to learn, if you're going to be a John Terry pace-wise, John Terry could read the game better than anyone else. And he has to learn now that side of the game. With us building the defensive core and having strength and depth, it will take pressure off him and allow him to learn, play EFL trophy games. I can't speak for players going out on loan. There hasn't been a discussion or a plan on that right now. What the plan always was, come on, George, come back pre-season and fire pre-season, play well. I think he played really well against Leicester. He's playing next to kids. He's 19, he's a kid himself, but he's playing next to kids. And I think both games we've seen him in, he's handled himself very well physically in the air and has hardly been turned, against some quicker players. I did laugh the other day, and you guys, you were doing your post analysis on CJ up against one of the best left wingers you're going to see in the championship this year, which blew my fucking mind when I was listening to what you were talking about, because I watched the game and I went back and did analysis, deep dive and one-on-ones.
Who was it who criticised CJ against Mavididi? You pointed the wrong way, Max. Other way, Max.
Mavididi.
There we go.
He beat him once the whole game. Once. Watch Mavididi beat here, whatever his name is, tear the shit out of 8, 6, 7, 8 million pound right backs this year in the champ. So I did have to laugh when I heard it, because CJ defended incredibly well against undoubtedly a very talented winger. When I was watching, I mean, I was on the sidelines watching this guy run. He was like a bloody stallion horse running against like a fullback, and he's built like a shithouse. And I thought, yeah, CJ was very good in that game. So I think sometimes we all get blinkers on about players, and we see things we don't see. And, we don't want to see things, that are quite obvious in front of us, and we can be a bit harsh. I'm like that too. And I think sometimes it's like you go into a preseason, you just have to go, it's a fresh page, it's a fresh start. CJ is a very, very good right back at this level. And you'll see that this year. And having him and JD, we've got great fullbacks. And I am a believer. I think they're all going to push each other. And that's good to have that.
Yeah, look, I will hold my hands up and I will say that I watched back that Leicester game, and I, like you just said, everybody needs a clean slate, right? And I think I was probably thinking back to, well, we've signed this best League One right back ever, EMC, knocking him down. So yes, I will agree, I was probably a little bit harsh. Clean slate, and there's been a very clean slate for somebody that was never going to play for the club again. Brad looks like, come Cardiff, he's going to be the number one guy, right?
Big Brad, yeah.
How has he turned himself around?
Brad.
So a few things happened. Obviously, the gaffer wasn't taking him to St. George's, and I was in Dubai, and I said, look, you're not taking him to St. George's because he's come back in bad condition or he hasn't tried a leg in the week he's been there. He's like, no. So okay. And I said, okay, speak to the player. To be fair to the player, he came into the manager politely and said the same, pretty much what I'd said. Like, what have I done wrong? And the manager was like, well, actually, I can't answer that, so you're coming. So the manager took him to St. George's. And second thing to that is Rooster. Bear in mind, Brad, it's not that he's a wronger, and he's not out partying and nightclubbing. He's not doing stupid shit. He's just young, he's immature, and he's done things that would drive a lot of management teams mad. Considering the shit we were in last season, the last thing maybe the manager needed was that going on. And there was probably a bit of that. And Rooster's come in, and Rooster loves him. And that's a fresh start for Brad. And obviously, I sat with Brad for 45 minutes. And the things I said to Brad, I could never tell you. I'll give you one hint. I said to Brad, because we don't all forget, strikers like him wrong. We invested good money in him, and there's a serious player in there. We forget his age. I said to him, you design a lab for strikers, and there ain't a lot of strikers out there. Trust me right now, there's a short. When you see some of the strikers going to the champ for 1.5, 2 million, who've scored 1 in 5 games, it tells you the lack of strikers out there. And you design a striker lab, who you're big, powerful, quick, technically good. All those things that go up in a striker, good age. You would design a Brad, and that's why we paid good money for Brad. Now, in saying that, he could self-implode and fall off the good horse he's doing, whatever, and fall out, and he could be on the list. But he knows he's now got another chance. And I sat with Brad, and one of the things I did say to him, look, he comes from a wonderful family, and I'm in a wonderful family. He's a good guy. His sister's training to be a nurse. And, that was one of the things I said to Brad. I said, if your little sister rang you and said, hey, I'm messing up my course. I'm irritating the professor. I'm doing this, and this. I said, what advice would you give her? And he's kind of looking at me, and he's getting what I'm saying. And I said, exactly. I said, so think about what you do. Second to that, I know where your parents live. I will go sit with your dad and your mum, and I'll tell them everything about you. And I mean everything. I'll show them stuff you don't even know I probably have. I said, so I'm telling you right now, get your act together. All right? I don't need any more nonsense. Get your head switched on. Now, to be fair to Brad, every day in training, St. George's, back the games we've played, he has been on it. He's just a little bit immature, and he's starting to mature nicely. And you saw in the games, I don't think he played a bad game when he actually played for the first team. But what he's got to learn is, He's got to learn no petulance, no stupidity with referees, no nonsense. Score a goal against Wrexham. You don't need to link their owners in a tweet. You know, at the end of the day, and this is how I put it to him, and I've had some great strikers. I love our players celebrating. There's nothing wrong with celebrating. But once you score and celebrate, you have to follow up the next game, the next game, the next game. So here's my advice. Go score 25 goals, win the Golden Boot, take your trophy, go on a yacht full of birds at the end of the season, and then you can celebrate and do all the silly crap. But focus while you're in season at working. You train and play games for 16 hours a week. Can you run around and put a bit of effort in and do it for 16 hours with the God-given talent you were given and be that next player? Because there's two things can happen. One, you're going to go all the way to the Premier League and be a multimillionaire, or you're unemployed. That's the choice sometimes with footballers that don't take things seriously. So I think the penny's dropped. I think he believes in himself. Most important, he's working his ass off for the team. And that's, you ask his teammates what they think of Brad. You know, they think good things of Brad. And you ask Sam, you think the defenders, he is a handful. So, you know, I introduced you to Johnson Clark Harris in 2021. I won't even go into the reasons he first left the club and whatever when Darren moved them on. You go back to play. Strikers, when they're young, are very different than when they start going into their prime and they mature. And we just have to turn that page with him. And there is a seriously good, I believe, the manager believes, Rooster believes, there's a seriously good player in there.
Does he, somebody just mentioned it in the comments, so it would be rude not to bring it up. Does he remind you of an Ivan Toney, sort of in maybe that he's a few years behind where Ivan Toney was when Ivan Toney came to us?
Yes, he does. And he hasn't played a lot of football. And I think if we're all patient with him, and he puts the effort in, he could be anything he wants to be. He's got it all. You watch him in the training ground. I was with Rooster, the manager, and we were watching one of the drills, and it was Brad against four of our defenders. And the ball kept cleared out, and he was on the halfway line. And it was four of our defenders and Brad. The ball was still in the air. Within 6 seconds, he'd gone, took the ball down, left the four defenders, and I shouldn't say that about our defenders, and was in on goal. Like, just controlled it, took it out of the air with Sam on, whoever it was on top of him. I can't remember at the time.
Last season, Wickham at home, I think, he got through at the halfway line and beat their entire back line. Unfortunately, keeper saved it one-on-one.
Did it against Leicester.
He's got it in his locker, hasn't he?
Did it against Leicester. Unfortunately, instead of pulling the trigger and not knowing that it's Justin on your shoulder who's quite pacey, you know, he got through and beat like 3 players against Leicester. And he has to learn with a left foot drill, power drill, judge the player coming after you, shoot. And you know, there's a player in there, guys. So I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. If I'm wrong, it's on the player. It's not on me. And it's not on our recruitment. Because we've recruited a fantastic player for, you know, less than 300 grand in today's terms for a striker that's built like that. I'm sorry, but that's good business. If it turns out to be bad business, that's not us. That's him. So that's really the mantle now is to go to him to take it on and run with it.
So the other striker, somebody that I think is still finding their feet and is still just missing that final ball. Yep. Then you watch Stamford. I don't know if you were still there or whether you'd left at the time.
I saw where he passed. Can't pass that ball. I love it. And if you're in the 90th minute to win a league game of football, I want him to pass the ball.
Absolutely,
like,
yeah.
I want 100% certainty. When you're in a pre-season, look, Gustav should have scored a hat-trick the other night. And there's a lot of things just not happening for him. But I'd like to see him in a team with Brandon and Donny. So I'd like to see, when you see the runs he makes, I'd like to see him in a team with Brandon in pre-season. Who knows? I might get that wish tomorrow. But the reality is that he's one of them that the dam will break and he will score goals. And if you looked at his career in Sweden, it was very similar. Slow burner, slow starter, catch fire, bang. And he's that type of player. What Gustav is different from all the other guys is his run, his pace, everything he sees, he different level. And I so want him to get off the mark because I know a lot of people have written him off and whatever else. I haven't. I still think there's a golden boot winner in Gustav.
His runs are very Dwight Gale, but I think he needs to work on when he receives the ball at feet, facing his own goal. That's one of his main issues at the moment, and I'm sure that can be built up in time. But yeah, equally, can you? If we're always going to focus on him doing those line-breaking runs, can the midfielders, where's the playmaking going to come from? Hopefully Keller, right? Or I'm trying to think who else possibly. Archie has it. Is the answer?
Archie, Donny. Obviously Colin Clark. We've got a lot of options in midfield. You know, there's a lot of players. I mean, you know, even Ryan in the Leicester game put one on his head. You know, it was an unbelievable ball. You know, we haven't. And you just want him to break through and get those few goals. And I wanted him to score against Stamford the other night. And he should have, and he knows himself. But look, I'm not worried about Gustav. You know, me and the manager know we have a player there. So I'm looking forward to him breaking through and hopefully start scoring some goals.
Do you think that between the two of them, that if we said 35 goals or 40 goals between the two of them is a successful season for them as a pair? Because let's say that they switch in and out. Sure. There's got to be a number, right, that we should see and fans should say, yeah, they've been good strikers. And then the next season, they then go and do 50, 55.
Yeah,
what is that?
I think to win promotion, you know, pretty much automatic promotion, you need to pretty much be up there in the Golden Boot winner stakes like we did with John on the season we went up. So you want your number 9 to get 25 goals. I think, you know, 35 goals between them, meaning one of them's off the bench, one of them's playing a lot, you know, would be great. I think if you look across the line, you're definitely going to want from your wingers, your 10, and your striker. There's 4 of them there. So you're going to want at least 65, 70 league goals. And I think, you know, if you're in that vicinity there, what's that? Is that 15 each or whatever else? I don't know how you break it down. But I think that puts you in with a chance of going up. So we have high hopes in the two of them, basically, scoring goals between them.
I wanted to talk about the system for this season, Darragh, because you've mentioned about playing that flat 3 and playing a 4-3-3 rather than the 4-2-3-1 that we're so accustomed to seeing more recently. I think my question really lies in what are the pros and cons of sort of each, like on a player sort of basis? How are we going to get the best out of each player in the flat 3 compared to the 4-2-3-1? And we spoke a lot about Chris Clark during the show. My worry was that if we were to play a 3, he would become more of an option rather than a standout player. Rather than, I presume he's more accustomed to the 10. What would that mean for him in this season? Would he then become more rotational to let O'Brien, Brady, Keller, and Collins play as that flat 3, and he become more rotational? Or do you think there's a slot for him in midfield?
Look, I don't pick the team. At the end of the day, we decided at the end of the season we were going to go a different way. You know, the manager was laughing the other day because obviously I'd said this in an interview and I shouldn't have, but we're working on 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3. In the past, it was a 4-2-3-1 and 3 at the back. So we've gone different. We've recruited players for these styles. And we think, you know, if you take 4-3-3 with a 6 and 2 8s, we think Colin Clark can play as one of the 8s quite easily. The shape he's in, the condition he's in, there's no doubt. I don't pick who gets into the 3 there or the 3 up top. It's down to Cricky to fight his way in. I will say this, in the 2 games he's played so far, he's looked fantastic, and he's at it. If he's at it, he's one of the best players in the league. And that's a lot of pressure I'm putting on him, but it's why we invested a lot of money in him. So we think he could be anything. We just feel, if we go 4-3-3, we feel if you take all the central midfielders we have and add Cricky in there as one of them, you know, we have a lot of options. And then you go to the 3 in front, you've got a lot of options there as well. So I know players are always, our fans are like, let's sign more players, let's do this. Well, you know, you're not going to be able to pick them all on a match day squad. So I'm looking forward to seeing. We haven't really seen the 4-3-3 properly. A lot of what we've seen so far, even against Leicester and Stamford, was 4-2-3-1. I know some people think it was a 4-3-3. It wasn't. It was 4-2-3-1. You know, and Cricky was playing as a 10, and he did go deeper at times, but it was 4-2-3-1. I think what you're going to see tomorrow, you won't see tomorrow. I think there's going to be some 4-3-3 action, and I think you might. I don't want to speak for the manager. You might see it next week.
The squad, Darragh, as a whole now, do you think that it's more of a level playing field and that they are all genuinely going to be competing with each other now, and that will ultimately drive them on? Like, if I think about Poku and Hayes is a good player. Poku is a fantastic player. Sure. Then when you move back into sort of Hector was maybe a good player, not last season, but the season before, and Ricky was excellent at what he did. Do you think that the squad as a collective, not only the family sort of side of it, that actually they're all going to drag each other and go to war ultimately this season, even if it's an attractive war or a pretty war?
Yeah, I made it clear to the players when I had the meeting with the leadership group and quite a few of the lads, and I used this one. This isn't about me; it's about we, and that's the way I think about that. As our squad, as our coaches, everything. Right? This isn't about me. This is about we, and there's been a bit too much me recently. So yes, we develop and we create some great individual talents. Everyone talks about our players, but we can still do that as a we. And, when you go back 2 years ago, we had 3 players in the EFL Team of the Year. We had players winning awards. So it wasn't just that one player. It was a we situation. And I think now with the squad, the age, the type of player we've brought in, the characters, I think, they all look, I'm not saying they all look at each other as the same. Players will have their own confidence. Go, I'm better than him and I can be better than him. But yeah, there's nobody standing there thinking, well, I'm going to be getting 50 grand a week next year and whatever else. They're thinking about, can I get in the 11? And then can I win football games? And then can we win a promotion? And that's the way I want them thinking. Instead of, well, actually, I'm going to get my move here and I'm going to get my move there. So it is very much a we rather than a me situation, if that makes sense. Can you give me a minute to answer the front gate? Is that okay with you guys? I'm sorry, I know I'm live in this thing, but I'm the only one in the house.
Of course, but I might top up some.
Talk about your sponsor.
Talk about our sponsor. We are sponsored today by Prime Vehicle Sales. For those who weren't here earlier in the episode, for all your motoring needs. I should probably read out the proper line again.
Do you know what? I think what we should say now is that we are going to do, when Darragh gets back, a rapid fire for some questions in the chat. So if you have any questions right now that are burning that we haven't answered yet,
also
fire them in.
Yeah, the ones from earlier, like going all the way back to 7 p.m., 3 past 7, we can see them all very easily. So don't worry. If you asked a question over an hour ago, we can still see them. We will bring up the ones that we think are worth asking that he hasn't already answered.
We will start with this one.
I'm going to get some water. I'll be back.
Oscar. Come on. Keep it about the football, fella. Keep it about the football. My trim's got nothing to do with it. Please. I like my new haircut. I can see everything. I went on holiday. My forehead had not been exposed to the sun since birth, practically. So my forehead was red raw. So I'm enjoying my new haircut. But thank you very much. I'm not going to tell you what I have for my barber.
Short back and fucked. Jordan, yes is the answer. I have got a big list of them. It's just a case of trying to cover as much as we can. I've got a spreadsheet full of questions that we tried to basically collect all together and collate and make sure that we're sort of copying. I think that somebody just put in a comment now about the stadium. That will definitely be something that we ask. I think that we'll definitely ask about Fergie going forwards. I know that Harry wants to get into the numbers side of things and start talking about those. So there'll be some of the things that we talk about. And then ultimately, Del, bad news. I don't think you're going to get an answer to this one. It's been sworn to secrecy. I think that we will also ask this one as well. How much Darragh will tell us will be a completely different question, but we can but try and feed. Obviously, I've seen the badge, but you two
how's
haven't.
that NDA, Ashley? How good you feel about that NDA?
Well, look, let's ask the big man. I signed an NDA with Clive. Right. Does that still count or not? Because we said that we're going to do a little bit on some listeners' questions and some viewers' questions from the chat, Darragh. So if we start with what is the burning question on a few people's mind, if we start with Ian West, he said, "What's happening with the stadium?" Obviously, Paul Bristow's been quite vocal, hasn't he, and used it as a political point to get the arena, the Peterborough Arena and the Peterborough Sports Arena. Where are we with that?
Yeah, Paul approached us a while ago if we could, help or get involved, and I was kind of something I should have done years ago. I said at the time, look, we had a lot of blowback from previous things that happened in that way, and I don't want to get into politics, and I don't want to upset either party. I don't want to, back that horse, but we'll work with anybody who's in council, administration, mayor, leader of the council. So he's got some great ideas. Fantastic. I'd love to hear them. I haven't met with him yet. I'm sure I will in the future. I don't want to talk about the stadium because, again, it's involving a company that I own with two other people. you know, and the stadium has its own issues, but I am trying to unwrangle all of that. And, you know, as the PT keeps writing, we owe the council money, that company, not the football club. Again, I want to meet with the council personally from a football club perspective and figure a way out of it. And that is still my long-term goal and something I personally am working on all the time. They're not in a hurry to talk to me because obviously the council, you know, owed money from the stadium company and they affiliate me with both, which is a shame because, again, you know, we want to have a relationship with whoever's in charge of the council. I think what we bring to the community outweighs, you know, that issue that will eventually get settled. So I'm hoping there'll be a breakthrough in that in the near distant future. So, you know, because I think we, as a football club, as an organisation, we bring millions into the city. I think anyone who wants to go on about, yeah, but the stadium company owes a couple $100,000 and no, our football club brings millions. What we do for the community, we're an asset to the community. And whoever's in charge of the council and everyone else needs to look at that and realise that. And you guys might disagree, but our foundation work, you know, the revenue the city earns every time we have sellout crowds and big crowds. I mean, you know, we're the best show in town. No disrespect to anyone else. So I want to have a relationship with those people. It's on my to-do list, and I have a big to-do list of things I want to get right this year, including accounts and stuff that Harry would probably want to talk about. So it's a long wish list, and it's something that excites me, you know, to get through. It's not just about building a football team and winning football games and trips to Wembley and success. It's the stuff off the pitch too.
This is catnip to me, Darragh, introducing the finance side of things. We'll come back to the listeners' questions because this is the only opportunity I'm going to have to ask about this. But you know what? I'm gonna take it back to the first spaces you did with me when me and good old John did those with you just on Twitter, X, whatever. And I remember asking you about where you want the club to be from a revenue perspective, because for those who don't know, player sales don't get included in revenue at football clubs. They're a separate thing. So revenue is what your club can sustainably make even without selling anybody. And you said you wanted to be in League One anyway, a £9 million club. And the next year, we're a £10 million club, and we still are, which I'm sure you're very happy with. Are you still wanting? I'm guessing though as well. If we got a new stadium, it's gonna. I would think you'd probably get up to 15
Ask
million.
a question, Harry. Jesus Christ!
I'm easing it in.
This is an absolute
ball
tickling fest going on. I've been accused of it before. Jesus Christ! Just shove it in.
No, look, 2 years. Listen, Ashley. I'm not sure about your Richard situation, whether you're married, whether you're not married, but like there is foreplay involved, all right? You've got to occasionally use some, you know, lube, whatever you use. You can't just go like that, boy. So look, here's the reality. We spoke a couple of years ago, and at the time there were articles in the paper. You know, our demise has been written. It was bad. I was trying to, you know, buy back shares, do deals, do whatever. Look, I feel we are going in the right direction. Revenue is important. You're right, and it's a killer that transfer income doesn't get included because our revenue looked supersonic every year. If you looked at, you know, transfer income and everything else. Yeah, here's a couple of good tidbits. Revenue is growing. Our commercial is just kicking ass. I love the fact another club tried to lay claim to some of our commercial success because they recruited one of Alex's, you know, guys that he trained for a couple of years. That wasn't nice because, you know, Alex for me is like one of the most important people at the club along with Dawn. And he's like, we have our own little brain trust and he's just so important to us. And you see the job they're doing, and every year I laugh, you know, it's like, oh, is 4 the number this year? Because he's just smashed 3 million in commercial revenue. So I go, when are we getting to 4? And if we get to 4, I'll be like, when are we getting to 5? And he came to St. George and we were talking about concerts and talking about this, that, whatever. The megastore crossed the £1 million mark months earlier than we thought it would. So, you know, we're kicking ass there. Our accounts, which I forget about the submissions and stuff, we had to the 30th of June to do certain things. I think we showed a profit, and they haven't been released yet, whatever else, in the millions. We're the only League One club, I think, showing a profit, which again, Harry, that'll give you a bit of a stiffy. I don't like the debt. It's in the 16 million level. We missed out by a short period of time where I am hopeful over the next 8 weeks of doing enough stuff where I'm going to, about 3 to 4 million of that 16 million is going to be gone. So, you know, I feel, yep.
Can I ask, so on that, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, it's about 6 million of that is yours, and another 6 million of that is it more than that? Because 6 million of it is Old Kent Road, isn't it?
No, the Old Kent Road, right? No, the Old Kent Road deal I did is way down there because we're paying all the time in tranches. So that's under
Do they?
4. If you let me finish, I'll tell you what it is. So secure debt is under like 9 million. Unsecured debt's another 7 million. So yeah, I'm a good 3.5 for that, whatever it is. And then you've got 5 investors who put 4.5 in, and then you've got obviously the OKR debt. So none of the transfer income that's come in has been used to pay down debt. That's used to pay our bills. That's used to recruit, build our asset base up, and everything else. So if a Harrison got sold, if there was a bonus payment this summer, let's say Harrison got sold for 20 million, and we were due another 3 or 4, I'd probably use a good chunk of that to get rid of some debt, because I think that's the right thing to do. I want to get our debt under 10 million. I think a well-run League One football club is always going to have debts 5 to 7 million. I just do this. You look at football now. The average club in League One loses 6 million a year. I think our accounts have just shown we're going to do a profit of nearly 3 million, Harry. So, we're one of the rare instances, who does that. And obviously we reinvested in the mega store facilities and players. And none.
So I was going to say, no, absolutely good. The hardest thing for us is the cash flow, isn't it? Because whenever you look at that, it's hard cash out the door to pay off the debts. The interest was like $1 million last year, and
too much.
Pay the bills.
Too much. Right. The interest is like between the interest and the repayments and everything else. Our cash flow has gone from 3 mil hole every year up towards the 5, and I hate it. Every April, May, I sit down, I get given July the 1st to June the 30th, we're going to have to find 5 million quid. I'm like, I don't sleep for 2 months. I don't sleep. Like I had to put in, I think it was 220 grand in May, and I put in, while I was in Dubai, 315 grand in June to pay the wages. That's just in 2 months. That was last year's cash flow. And then the new cash flow starts July the 1st, which is basically a 4.8 million pound hole. And then in the space of, obviously, with the Ricky thing going on, Kwame was going to Scotland, that holiday was like, my wife was looking at me while we're trying to have a drink in the bar, and I'm basically, And then in the space of like, the fat lady was clearing her throat, the door was getting closed firm, and then suddenly there was a glimmer. Then the fat lady suddenly got laryngitis, and suddenly we got a deal in Kwame. We closed off the Malik deal, we closed off the Manny deal, and basically pretty much all our cash flow for 10 of the 12 months is covered, bar the last couple of months. And that's the earliest we've ever done that, which I'm really proud of. And that's in return also of us spending another couple of million on transfer fees for the next bunch of assets, because you can't keep selling players without, people slag us about, they sell their best players, they do this, they do that. We spend a lot of money on players, like a lot of money. I think the last 3 windows we spent £5.5 million on players. For a club our size, that's unheard of. Yes, I get all the millions we bring in, but that's unheard of. So I will say this to you, I feel better than where we were 2 years ago. I feel, non-football stuff, and you look at how bad the season was in the league, we were terrific. Everyone did a terrific job on that side of things. And I think we can get better. And I think I really want to get rid of all the loans with interest payments. We've got the bond coming up in a year.
It's just dead cash, isn't it? Yeah. It's
just dead money, because without all of that, our cash flow hole would be 3. And that's basically one number 9. That's it. And, and that's where I want to get back to.
Yeah. And just final thing, we can wrap up on this. Just anyone who can go see our accounts from when we're in the Championship, the whole disappears, doesn't it? You get that promotion, even if you get relegated. Not that we want to, but just the involvement money covers the year, doesn't it? It's like what were we, like 18 million in that year? Yeah. I mean, obviously your wages go up substantially. All our players have got like a fixed 30-40% in their contracts. So, but there's still a bit of a hole, but it's like $1 million. And you're not basically, like, for example, I went into July. The worst part of a cash flow hole in football is the mass majority of the 5 million is this side of Christmas. It ain't spread out from July the 1st to June the 30th. If I said to you, 1.1 million was July, 200 grand was August, and then it was 550 grand every month afterwards. The worst side of it was this side of Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Which is like the worst for a football club. So there are all those little things, and you look at it and you go, but I've been doing it 20 years. But I said to everyone in April and May, I'm sick of looking at our cash flow going, Christ, it's nearly 5 million hole. People think we don't pay players wages and serious, whatever else. Like, we're not the worst players, as opposed to what some people think. We invest substantially in transfer fees, facilities. So there's a lot of things I want to tick off. The debt is one of them.
We have a new pitch we're going to have to buy eventually. That's going to be like £1 million. You know, there's other things I'd like to do around the stadium. There's other things I'd like to do at the training ground. You know, but I'm very optimistic because no matter what people say, and you all laugh every year I say it, our playing squad's worth north of 30 million. And if I'd said that in April, May, who are you going to sell? I've got 20 years of body work doing this. So we have an average. We know what we bring in every year. And I know what my squad's worth. Yeah, transfermarket.com valued Manny Fernandez at 300 grand. I rest my case.
Do you know, so this is probably, I think, the biggest thing off the field for the club in your time, let's say, bar when we changed because we had to because of the Adidas kit. Obviously, we know that it's still going ahead despite what's happened sort of in the background with Clive and stuff on the 31st of July, right? That's sort of been confirmed. I think, obviously, for those that haven't watched when you discussed it on The Hard Truth, it would be nice to hear your limited opinion. I've shared mine. These two haven't seen it. Well, on the badge and how you think that it's going to help us fill some of these holes, because that was sort of the push, wasn't it? Is that it will make us a better sell for sponsors, for commercial, for retail, and all of those.
Have you seen it, Ash? Have you seen the badge?
Yeah. I went and saw the whole presentation. Yeah.
What was your impression?
At first, I was taken aback.
He loves it. Spoiler alert, he loves it.
Yeah, correct. But at first I was taken aback because it was nothing like what I expected it to be like. The work that Chris has done on it to incorporate all of the things that he has without saying too much was just nothing that I sat there and thought. I had a great time sat down with Chris when we played Leyton Orient. I think it was. I sat down with him for 2 hours and just chatted nonsense, probably what he thought. But he said it was great to listen to. And all of the concerns that everybody had, it was then nice that he'd managed to piece it all together to have something modern that is modular and all of those things. And I think that the first, I said to Clive and Chris when I was in the room, the first post that goes out on the socials is going to be the most important one, because people are going to take one look at it and go, what the hell is that? But they need the explanation and the 5 lines that come off of it, because when you read those, you then understand it. So for me, I think it's fantastic. Yeah. I'm just interested for everybody that's watching. There's nearly 2,000 people watching at the moment to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I was, a traditionalist, and I was a little bit like cautiously, not sure I want to do this when it was first brought to me. So I was apprehensive. When they gave me the presentation in May, and they put up they did it really cleverly. They showed me 3 or 4 before the final thing, and I was fuming. Each one, I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, excuse my language, everyone listening. I was kind of like, oh my God, we've done this for this period of time. I'm going to call time on this. And then the final one was our old one on the screen and the new one. And then I was silent for about like 60 seconds. There was about 6 people on the call. Dawn, Chris, obviously Clive, everyone was there. And I was looking at it, and I was like, I was like, I really like this. Like, I really, really like this. And then I was still angry about the stuff that showed me before. But the more I looked at it, I was like, I see it now. I get why we're doing this. I see this on different branding, clothing, logos. I just understand totally now why this needs to happen. The evolution, all of that. So I am optimistic. I don't care. Some people are not going to like it. I think the mass majority will love it. And regardless whether it creates controversy or not, I think it's the right thing for the football club. I trust my brain unit back at base. I trust the people off the pitch, like, immensely, like, trust them. And I think they've got this right, and I think it will prove to be. And I'm glad you like it. And yeah.
I just hope that Harry likes it, because I've been trying to convince him that it's a great move and it's a great thing, and he's adamant that it's not going to be that. And I think the only thing that would be nice to confirm, because I'm pretty sure that we've said it, is that the third kit's not been released yet. The new badge is not going to be on the third kit that comes out.
I don't believe so. I don't think so. No, I don't. I think all the stuff, the new badge will be next year. So from what I'm led to believe, now if I'm wrong, call me an idiot, but I believe it's next year. So on the shirt.
For the record, I have an open mind, Ashley. I'm a traditionalist, I didn't think I was need to change this beautiful circular, the Chris Brewer special But
I'll pull up the receipts when we finish recording, if you like, Harry.
Just don't play the voice notes.
The next question is on Fergie, and his contract's up at the end of next season. Apparently, is that correct?
I believe so. I didn't even know. And to be fair, we're pretty chilled about it. Look, me and Fergie have this thing, and I don't know if you know this, but we have two compensations in the contract, 0 and 0. So if Real Madrid come in for Fergie tomorrow, he can walk for 0. We get no compensation. If I decided to fire Fergie tomorrow, he gets nothing. So we have, like, after working together for so long, where I've paid him off in the past, and then he let it go in the champ where we owed him 300 grand when he quit. We didn't pay him anything. We have that agreement, and that works for both of us. And we've said, let's not get distracted. And he's on board with this. He said it to me, let's not get distracted with contracts and everything else. We'll get to it. You know, and the most important thing is finishing the rebuild, getting everyone acclimatized, making sure we hit the season, we start the way we want to go on. And that's the most important thing. So I'm very chilled about that. He's very chilled about that as well.
Yeah, I guess that all goes back to sort of the family thing, in that you know that come June or July next season, he's not just going to walk away, is he? Is that actually it'll get around to May the 6th after we've won automatic promotion, and he can have a new contract after that,
absolutely.
Right?
Within reason, as long as, you know, it's not too expensive, but 100%. No, and a joke there. He's told me what he wants to do when he finishes managing. He's told me how many years he thinks he's got left. You know, so we're very much in step with that. And, you know, listen, you know what I will think of him. And I think he's the best manager we've ever had. And I think he's still one of the best managers in League One, regardless of the shitter of the season in the league last year. And there's nobody I'd want to go into battle with more than him. So now, saying that, Sheffield Wednesday or somebody could walk in tomorrow and take him, you know, or whoever, you know, and I will not stand in his way.
Sheffield Wednesday couldn't afford the £0 compensation fee at the moment, could they? So at least we know it won't be them.
You get me anyway. You know what I'm saying?
We also, despite Ashley's second question of the whole interview, asking when will you sack Fergie if we're not doing well, we all said in the pod last year that even if we were relegated, we wanted Fergie to stay. Let the record show.
Look, you guys obsessed over that and obsessed about where we were in the table. You know, it was our job, me and Fergie, just to keep everyone's feet in the ground and eyes on the prize as regards to, you know, got to get our act together. And there was some shit moments last year. But look, it doesn't kill you in football, it makes you stronger. So I'm a firm believer in that. And I think it definitely made our bond better. And I think it made him a better manager. I think actually it was a great challenge for him. And, you know, I think he really enjoyed it. In a sick kind of way. And it was like after that Charlton defeat, whatever, away from home, the Manny red card, it was kind of like, right, fuck this. You know, we can't watch this. We can't watch the way we're playing. So regardless what league we're going to be in next year, let's stick to being us and let's just get back to playing that way and see where it takes us. And that's kind of when it was a bit of a reverse in fortune. You know, at Stevenage, got a draw, should have won, and we went on from there. And I think we both agreed at that time it was the right thing to do. So we will be fearless and brave this year, regardless whether Northampton are beating us 4-0 or not. You know, that's what we're going to, that's a joke, Max. And, you know, so yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, so the next question here, what are the thoughts of a Scottish tour next pre-season? 2 to 3 games against the likes of Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, Dundee, etc. I presume maybe if a relationship with Rangers is any good, perhaps there might be an opportunity there for a visit up to Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the season goes to plan, it'll be St. George's again, because every season we've gone there, we've done well afterwards. So again, our superstition and OCD. Look, St. George's is the most expensive place to tour in the UK, and it's on a par with going abroad. And only the best of the best go to St. George's. And there's a reason for that. It's magnificent facilities. It's the England home training camp. And my management team love it. The players love it. It's like being away. And you are away from everything, like the noise, the crap. And they are so good to us there. The food was unbelievable. I was sending videos back to my missus, you know, of the different food and whatever every day. And you know, we ran into Dan Ashworth and he was like, you know, what can we do to improve it and this, that, whatever. So I'm not sure where we go with Scotland. The only thing I'd like to do when we finally get back to the championship is to have that mid-season tour in January and go to Dubai for 5 days. That's my only dream about going abroad again. because it'll be hot temperatures. So sorry to burst your bubble in Scotland, but probably not going to happen.
Just a final sort of question from me. You mentioned a while ago, just looping all the way back to transfers. You mentioned I think it might have been on the Hard Truth, it might have been the sit-down interview that surrounding loans. Now we've obviously in a position where we're rebuilding, we're restructuring, we're getting the squad back on track and looking to push on this season. Is there a sort of contingency to that statement? Is there obviously, could there be a player that you just couldn't refuse on loan? Is it something that you might go back on and get a few in if you think we're short on the ground, or maybe there's a surprise injury, or is it a firm no loans? We want everybody that wants to be here. We don't want to be shifting them in season, and very similarly to what happened with, I presume, Peter Chiozo in the following season, where he was recalled and we couldn't get him back. Is that something that you're trying to avoid with the loans?
Yeah, it's a great question, Max. I'm not a fan of loan. A lever you always have. And if you go back to when we brought Sam and Teo in, they were the right two levers to pull at that time. And you would argue and say, well, it kept us in the league, did whatever else. Look, they were the right levers. And they were the right levers because we ended up with our captain in the future. So, that road led to what we feel is going to be a very good captain of the club. I'm not completely against it. And if we don't get the targets we have this summer, and the money will be there in the next window and the window after, well, then we'll go get a loan if we have to. That's what we have to do. We feel a loan can go and do the same thing. We might have to wait on that player or whatever else. Instead of rushing out and getting the wrong player, and I don't want to do that either and get the wrong player, well, then we'll pull the lever. We'll do that. I'm not against that. Will Blackmore took a bit of a hip injury in camp, and Nick might be leaving. And we thought, well, now we might have to pull the lever and get a lone goalie in. Touch wood, you don't want to be in that position too much. So, there's only one position I'd be 100% against the loan in, and that would be a striker. And I've always said that. I don't think there's any benefit in you bringing someone else's player on a loan for him to win the Golden Boot.
You've actually answered one of the viewers' questions there. Someone had brought up a certain Stoke player who was on loan in League Two last year.
Yeah,
you brought it up on screen.
Wonderful player. I don't know where any truth is. There's an article out there about us with Nathan Lowe. Look, if he was available, I'm sure you're going to have the bigger clubs in our league offer him 3 times the money. We're the right place for him to come to, obviously, what we do for strikers. But I don't think he'll be available at our level, financially. And I certainly wouldn't be taking him on loan. Terrific player, but not on loan. No, I think you want to own your number 9. Club our size needs its number 9 to be an asset, not somebody here for 9 months. So that for me, I'm never going to change on that one. End of story.
What I should have asked this earlier and I didn't because I forgot about it. And one thing that was quite important and that we took away from the last live that we did back in January was the season ticket prices. And obviously you and Charlie both went back and forth a little bit on that they had to go up, right? So what was the change in that? Because I came out of that live and was like, okay, well, I know that I'm going to be paying more for my season ticket next season. What was the change that surrounded that meant that actually the only people that saw an increase, and I'll put it in quotation marks, were the COVID price freeze people? Everybody that had a standard season ticket post-COVID had a freeze ultimately.
Yeah. Chris and Dawn just said to me, where we were in the league and everything else, it was the right thing to do. And I said, look, I hate that because you got clubs who never do well in leagues, never win promotions, never win cups, and they go by inflation. So I'm not going to lie. I went with their opinion and said that'll be the final time. Our cost of everything to steward games, to run games, electricity, we have to put prices up. I'm sorry, we have to. It's just, I'm on a thing with 19 other owners in League One, and we all laugh that it's mad that we have the same amount of money we get from the Prem and the EFL every year. It's whatever it is, 1.5 million. And all we see is things going up. Players' wages are rising, player costs are rising, everything around us rising. It's this is a mad business that we're in where you lose 5-6 million every year. So unfortunately, I don't want to get in a row with young Charlie again, and I guess he's not on time since it's past his bedtime. But the reality is that prices will rise. That's the world we live in. It's everything is more expensive. Christ, I got my wife moaning about groceries every week in the States, and she's not short of $1. So I went to the cinema today, and I just told you I spent 28 quid for me. My driver went with me, because, you know, and I bought him popcorn, a hot dog, and some nachos. That was 28 quid for that, not the tickets themselves. So I don't want to hear about, you know, football tickets are too expensive. That was a View Cinema. I don't know what the hell they're charging. The food was crap.
This is another non-question from me, but I'm going to give credit where it's due. I regularly got that 10-game ticket, because I don't live in Peterborough anymore. I come up for a few games. That thing, price-wise, extremely competitive, and has been for many, many years. You know, 200 quid for 10 games. I think it's 210 now, but
Too cheap.
Yeah, well, I did some maths on it. If you work it out, for someone who doesn't live in Peterborough, I think when you factor in the petrol, that thing could be 25 quid per ticket, be 250 quid and still be worth it, because it's going to be cheaper than buying an all-out season ticket, given that you're not really using all those games because you can't.
No, I get it, and Chris introduced that, and it was a great introduction as a product. You know, but we're you know, we haven't really moved the needle and putting prices up on certain things, and unfortunately, that's going to have to change. So you know, it's people want me to try and keep our players and try and do it. It gets more difficult. Do you know what I mean?
90 quid for a replica with the new badge on it, maybe.
There you go. How much do the kits cost now?
£52.
Way too cheap. So yes, the stuff's going to have to go up.
I think we're going to probably come to the end, Darragh, soon, and there's just a few things that I think people want to sort of know, and it's hard to say yes or no, so it's probably fair if we work in percentages. Come the end of August, Harley Mills and Archie Collins, what is the percentage chance that they will still be Peterborough United players moving into September?
With Harley, I think it's high probability in the 90s. So, you know, I think he knows he's the main man. You know, his agent's a very good agent. You know, his dad, in fairness, is aligned him with a great agency. And I've known them for a long time, and they're very good with their players. And I think, you know, he's a great kid, and I think we'll get there. With Archie, it's, you know, I think his agent would prefer him to be gone than Archie. So it's trying to convince Archie to ignore his agent, who I go back a long time with, you know, and just say, look, you know, again, commit to us. So it's probably with Archie, it's more 70-30 in his favour of him not committing. Now, if somebody comes in and offers us 7 figures, I'll sell him. I'm not doing what we did last year. And I told the manager that, and I told Archie that. And I said to Archie, my preference would be if you don't sign a new deal, that the manager focuses on what we have. But I can't tell my manager to do that. He loves Archie. So, you know, if I was a manager, I'd be like, well, sorry, if you're not committing, I'm going, you know, but that's me. But I will say this about Archie. He would never give us a moment's issue. He would never, ever pull out of a tackle. He wouldn't be like some of the stuff we've seen. And, you know, he'll be committed. But I would love him to sign a new deal. I don't think people are having a go at him from the champ because of his size, because they probably don't watch enough of our games. And we know how good he can be at this level. And I think he's reinvigorated now with the players around him, the competition with Donny, the competition with Brandon, you know, and I think he'll step it up this year. So, yeah, that's where I am on that. But again, look, I'm very chilled about it. I'm not, you know, losing sleep. If Archie's not here, he's not here. Or we'll move on. We have to move on as a football club. I can't keep obsessing about the players that leave.
Darragh, there's a certain name that's been floating around on Twitter today, and I know you're very quick to shut it down, but it was in the comments section as well, and I just have to ask, because I do get quite excited over transfer rumours. You mentioned earlier about Bristol Rovers and Jack Sparks and clubs, you know, wanting to do deals and whatever. And the name that's sort of been floating around today is Connor Taylor. I just wanted to know, I know that we're looking for a centre back. Is there any truth in that, in the Connor Taylor deal? Has there been recently a bid increase? I think it was Peter Wrought that mentioned it today.
The stuff Pete comes out with. Pete's one of them. I don't know who keeps leaking everything to him. Like, you see stuff coming up, and 90% of it's like players we've not even made a bid for. Like, that's always the laugh, you know what I mean? And it's like, we will inquire for players. Usually at the end of the season, I'll have Barry inquire about loads of people that might be on our list. Doesn't mean we're buying them. There's another one came out today in midfielder. We would just get cost analysis done, and we'll look at a cost analysis versus our targets. It's how we do things when we recruit. I'm not going to speak about Bristol Rovers player out of respect to their owners and their club. I don't know who leaked that shit to Peter Rourke. I will say we have not bid recently for Connor Taylor, and I'm not going to talk about him. I'm going to talk about whether we're going to bid again or whatever else. He's with Bristol Rovers. He's a Bristol Rovers player. You know, we're actively in the market for a centre half, and we've made bids for the centre halves, which we've done. We've done it yesterday. We did it 3 days ago. It's ongoing. We had a list of 10, you know, and it's like everyone knows what kind of centre half we want, the partner for Sam or whatever else. So, you know, we go through the list. You have option A, B, C, D. A might drop out because he's gone to a championship club or whatever, or B might drop out because he's got an injury. We signed a new deal. That's just the way it goes. So again, not losing sleep about it. Definitely not going to insult Bristol Rovers over talking about their player, you know, on this or anywhere else. So I saw the article. I see all of it. I'm just like, I don't know who's playing games or who put stuff like that out there. It is what it is. I was amazed some of the things that did come out. Didn't come out, like Manny didn't come out. I kept it largely on the wraps. You know, the Malik thing obviously surprised people. So we kept those on the wraps as well. Just sometimes things leak out there.
All right. I think we really are there. I'm going to ask the last question. Are you going to be, or is it two-parter, I suppose? Are you going to be at the Cardiff game? And apart from the obvious answer, which is winning the game, what are you looking to see out of that first game of the season when it comes around?
I'll be at the Cardiff game, and I'm looking to see intensity. I'm looking to see, you know, belief. I'm looking to see good football. Result aside, I'm looking to see us back, you know, and my players having that belief without criticism, whether it's good or bad, that they can go and do their thing. And I want us to be like that again this season. No criticism at all. You know, go make your mistakes. Go try and do what we want to do. And that is dominate the football, score lots of goals, be a really progressive, pressing, passing team. It's pretty on the eye, full of youngsters that are enjoying themselves and smiling with their mates out there when they do it. So that would describe probably 2 years ago. So I want us to get back in that swing of things. And some of the new names on that day against Cardiff, sending you lot home in a bit of a tiz, going, geez, I didn't know he was that good, or geez, I'm really happy with that. So that's kind of what I want. Nothing's decided on day one. You know, so, you know, Cardiff's going to be a great game, you know, and it's a hell of a squad, hell of a stadium. So, you know, that's a corker. So, again, you won't get a reaction out of me the first 4, 5, 6 games of the season. You know, this takes time. So, I'm really excited. I'm genuinely excited to see what the new parts look like, some of the parts from last year look like. You know, I think we're in a really, really good place. And winning, losing, or drawing against Cardiff won't change that opinion.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Darragh. Always willing to give it your time. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome, fellas.
I think we got, Ashley, tell me, was it 2,000 people watching at one point? I think we've done pretty well.
Yeah, it's still going up now as we waffle on at the end.
Well, that's the time that you leave it, right? When you're at your peak. Yeah, thank you. And Darragh, I think you know the drill. As always, at the end of the episode, we say the customary up the Poshcast.
You want to get a soundbite for me to advertise and endorse your future things, don't you? So I will say,
look, I will.
F the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
F the Poshcast. There's only one date in town, and that's the hard truth, baby. Tune in weekly out there, guys.
I have